Hello, I'm Carol Buick from the AMRC, and I'm chatting today with Hayley Anderson from JDRF. Welcome, Hayley.
Hi, Carol. How are you?
I'm good. You work for JDRF. Why does JDRF exist when there are other diabetes charities? What makes it special?
So JDRF focus predominantly on type 1 diabetes, and we're research focused. So our mission is to drive research to cure, treat and prevent type 1. And I think it's that focus on type 1 that makes us different from other diabetes charities out there.
Why is it needed?
So I think it's needed to support all the people and families who live with type 1. It's an autoimmune condition, so research is the best way to find a cure. And I think having someone like JDRF out there kind of supporting and championing people with type 1 gives people hope, and that's what we hope we can do.
What's your role there?
So I'm Director of HR and Resources at JDRF. I'm in my 15th year now, so it's clearly a great place to work.
You've clearly worked there a long time. What brought you to it in the first place, and what makes you stay?
So I, quite strangely for someone who has no research background, I was at the Medical Research Council before JDRF. And so I'm in awe of people who can do research. I'm in awe of research in itself. And so when this job came up, I was looking at furthering my HR career. I already knew a little bit about recruiting to research, understanding working with the scientific community. So it just seemed a really good match at the time. I think I'm still here because of the nature of the organisation. I started off in HR and operations. I got promoted. I'm now director of HR. And all that time I've been able to kind of determine my own path. So it's the flexibility within my job as well as the cause that excites me.
You mentioned having worked at the MRC beforehand. What would you say are the main differences between the kind of role you have in a charity to if you were in the public sector or the private sector?
Oh gosh, I think speaking purely for working at JDRF, I think it's that connection to our supporter base is just so fundamentally different than if you work in either the public sector or the private sector. Knowing that you're meeting and talking to people whose lives will be transformed by the work that you're doing just helps you get out of bed in the morning. I think in terms of the actual day-to-day work, just the amount of freedom and opportunity to try new things that I have in a charity sector, I think, in comparison to such a big machine like the MRC was, you get your role, it's very small. But here, we can try a bit of everything. And if it doesn't work, we try something else. So it's just that opportunity for doing different things, I think.
You mentioned that opportunity for doing different things. Is there such a thing as a typical day for you, or is every day absolutely different? And has that changed with the pandemic?
I think in all jobs there's some element of things that you have to do and that you always do. But I think when you're working with people as closely as I do, there's always surprises and there's always different things to resolve or celebrate or deal with. I think the pandemic has changed what those things are. And I think obviously we were very focused on having to make decisions to secure the future of our charity at the time when things first started. But on the whole, in terms of the day-to-day nature, people don't tend to change that much. So the same issues tend to be there. But I think it's always a surprise. There's always something surprising in my day that I didn't quite plan for.
JDRF is an international charity. Does that mean you're looking for something different? Does it appeal to a different kind of person? Is the team different because of that international link, do you think?
I don't think so. I think perhaps it excites a different type of fundraiser, maybe. That idea of being able to work globally is really exciting. I think even from a HR point of view, having networks, it's really fascinating to see how things work differently in different countries, how initiatives that you talk about in the States would never work here in the UK. So I think it's a really good incentive in recruitment terms for people, but I'm not sure it attracts a different type of person necessarily.
What's your favourite thing about working at JDRF? There must be many if you've been there for 15 years.
I absolutely love the fact that our staff team are so absolutely passionate about our cause. I think, I started 15 years ago knowing nothing about type 1. And if I left tomorrow, I would still be a massive champion for type 1. I know people who have left JDRF and still continue to support us. And I think that doesn't leave you. And I think that that's an amazing thing to come to work with every day and know that your staff team are so absolutely passionate about what they're working for. And it's lovely.
We mentioned before we started the interview that actually Hayley was the person who brought me into the charity world at JDRF, and I still wear my JDRF staff t-shirt to do my yoga. What makes you most proud of what you do?
I think from a HR point of view, that we try to be focused on people. And I know that sounds ridiculous being the HR team, but I think so often you can get distracted by process and policy, but you have to have process and policy that's right for your people and right for your culture. And I think we strive to get that right and do that well. And I hope that we do.
How many people work at JDRF?
So we've got 57 staff at the moment.
And what about worldwide? Do you know?
Gosh, no. So in terms of people staff, both America and Canada are slightly larger than us. America's much larger than us. Australia tends to be slightly smaller. I think they've got about 30 staff, and then we've got slightly smaller affiliates that maybe have 4 to 5. So we're somewhere in the middle in terms of staff numbers.
When we contacted you to ask you to do this, what did you think? What was your first thought?
Well, I think I love to talk about JDRF. So any given opportunity to be able to blow the trumpet of the organisation I work for is amazing. And I also thought it was nice to be picked because obviously I'm not a researcher. So to be able to talk about, HR and people in the research sector, I found it very exciting.
Well, we want to show that there are many different roles that are in the research charities, and they all have equal importance and are all very interesting. If you could have one wish for JDRF, what would it be?
I think, ultimately that our research leads to a cure for type 1. I think we all want to see ourselves out of business in some way, shape or form. I think possibly like most charities, I imagine you'll interview over the next couple of weeks, it's about that financial security, especially at the moment. We were hit as hard as anyone else, I think, during the pandemic. And just to have a little bit more security to try new and different things would just, I think small amounts of money make a big difference in organisations like ours. And so being able to have a bit more security would be amazing. But obviously a cure is that's where we're heading towards.
Hayley, that's been brilliant. I've known you for 10 years now. Every time I speak to you, it's just an absolute pleasure to see how passionate you are about this. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.